Hello.
Hello.
Hey, nice to meet you, and nice to see you again, guys.
Hey guys, how's it going? Sorry, I was muted for a little bit. Well, welcome back to the session of our weekly webinar series, Multimodal Weekly. We get started in a few minutes, and in the meantime, I maybe a quick I think like the last time we run this session was like back in December, before the start of the new year. So it's been a while to run the series again. And today we have two speakers, Russell and Marco. So really excited to have both of you give talks. And excited to see some of the familiar faces, Matteo, Brian, Chris, Marco again, in the chat. So let's wait for another probably like 2 minutes, and I share my screen, introduce the speakers, and then we can go straight into the two presentation. Yeah. Awesome.
This is how civilizations decline. They quit.
Okay, let me share my screen quickly, and we can get started. So hi all, welcome to Multimodal Weekly webinar series. This is a virtual webinar hosted by the team at Tall Labs, and some of you already familiar with us. Maybe some of you like are new, but we are an early stage startup building multimodal foundation models focused specifically on video understanding. And I think a multimodal AI has become more and more I guess prominent, since the later half of last year, and excited to have more and more speakers in the future that focus on the growing interest in this domain. We've been meeting every Friday on a weekly basis on 30 p.m. Pacific time since I think like last June, and typically we tend to cover a variety of topics ranging from like latest research in multimodal and foundation models, large language model, etc. Also excited to hear like application of this type of research in different verticals, especially like with enterprise and industry use cases. Since we focus a lot on video, we also invite like members from our community to share their relevant open source project, for instance, related to video and multimodal. And finally, sometimes we'll have like our internal team members give talks about their research or how to use our platform and API. In previous session, we have a ranging persona from like open source developer to researchers to startup founder. So I think like the profile of these folks like are the type of things that I felt like would resonate the most with like our community members. And for the session today, we have two speakers who got a chance to engage with anything like later last year. The first one is Russell Palmer, currently the CEO and co-founder of CyberFilm AI. I think I met Russell in person during like one of the pitching event by Radical Ventures all the way back in like April or May of 2023, right? And I think we kind of stay in touch after that, and we reconnected lately. I think so. We'd love to hear more about his perspective on how how generative AI is benefiting a lot of the work in the film industry, and especially Hollywood, and hear more about some of his development with CyberFilm AI, and especially the new project that he calls SAGA. And then in the later half of the session, we'll have another speaker, Michael Vandi, currently the founder and CEO of Addy AI. He will give a talk about fine-tuning open source large language model with the project that he's been contributing to called LangDrive. And I connect with Michael briefly during one of the in-person talks by AACAM back in November, and he's been very enthusiastic about some of the work with 12 Labs, and I got a chance to take a look at LangDrive as well. So I think like highlighting some of these initiatives in the open source community is something that I could love to do more for our community. And so yeah, I'm excited to hear more about some of your work in the later half of the session. And then just a quick logistic note on the webinar. So for the attendees, feel free to send your question on the chat so the speaker can answer them asynchronously, after they finish, and then we will have like a short, 3 to 5 minutes Q&A session after the speaker finished for any real-time question. So with that, I stopped sharing my screen and I let Russell get started with your presentation.
Okay, great. Let me share my desktop, and I hope you can hear me.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. How's that look?
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, so I actually started giving this talk to Hollywood filmmakers at conferences around 2021. So I updated the slides a little bit, but it's actually more interesting to see how much of it still holds true. But so bear with me, there might be some concepts you're already familiar with as experts in the tech field. Okay, so Act 1. So we like to start at the very beginning of storytelling itself. And so early humans, they began to record tales of successful hunts on the walls of their caves as a way to pass instructions to the next generation. This was before written language. So stories, they break down complex ideas into relatable and memorable events. And so it's how we would learn and grow as a society. And ever since they figured out how to use the charred firewood to sketch, we've been producing art to make stories last. And so this is the Chauvet Cave in France. It displays some of the oldest arts in history. And it was actually the first motion picture. So scientists believe that it showed animal hunting. So a technique for herding a bunch of animals off a cave. In the flicker of the campfire, it looked like they were running. So it was really interesting. And then later they invented paint sprayers from hollowed out bones. And then they would stencil their hand. So it's kind of the first selfie or self-portrait where they're saying, I was here to an audience 30,000 years later. So technology is the application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes. And it's gone from charcoal on walls to oil and acrylic paints and a wide variety of canvases. But we're still even making stencils, millennia later. Only a sprayer out of a bone is now, aerosol gases, and we have a full rainbow of colors. And modern day artists like Banksy, they're still making guerrilla art on stone walls. And he even used the mechanical technology of a paper shredder recently, and he actually destroyed one of his own paintings immediately after it sold at auction. But fortunately, it later resold for 10 times as much because of it. So, and finally, in the bottom right corner, the artist Beeple started making a digital image every day. After 5,000 days, he sold it as a combined NFT for $70 million, which was actually a record for a living artist at auction using technology. So we like to think media and technology, they continue to advance in lockstep. So the first motion pictures in theaters blew audiences away, literally. If you see in the bottom left, the train, they actually ran out of the theater screaming, seeing the train come at them in that big screen. And in the bottom right, the talkies were just a game changer with sound, and followed soon by Technicolor, and we end up with the modern equivalent of the film we know today. So some people think artists and technologists, especially last year with the strikes, there's going to be some war and they're separate types. But even before the Italian Renaissance, artists were often brilliant scientists and engineers. So most notably, Leonardo da Vinci. He conducted biological experiments. He designed tanks and early airplanes. And one of the most enigmatic pieces of art in history was also painted by him, the Mona Lisa. So if we fast forward to modern times, the industries of Southern and Northern California, they've been connected since the dawn of the 20th century. So art and technology coming together. Oh, if someone's laughing, I think you could turn the mic off maybe. Sidra, if you could turn your mic off, please. So the Bay Area and Silicon Valley have been critically influential on Hollywood filmmaking, especially in recent decades. So as an example, a short walk I like to do around my house through the Presidio, just south of the Golden Gate Bridge. Sidra, please mute your microphone, or someone mute her.
Yeah, I just mute.
Okay. So in the Presidio, just south of the Golden Gate Bridge, is the headquarters of Lucasfilm and Industrial Light and Magic. If you do visit, you got to check out the Yoda fountain pictured here. It's epic. But the park also has more historically accurate statues. So Philo Farnsworth, he created the first electric television, in his San Francisco lab. There's a statue of Edward Muybridge, who invented motion pictures using Leland Stanford's own horse on the farm. And it depicts him unveiling the zoetrope of his seminal work, The Horse in Motion, which we saw earlier. And even besides that, you see the Walt Disney Family Museum, another revolutionary trailblazer who incorporated and developed new technologies like the multiplane camera to advance the art of animated feature films. So a century after the zoetrope, we entered the digital era. So ILM hired a computer company from Berkeley to design nonlinear editing software. And eventually George Lucas would sell the company Pixar to Steve Jobs, which would go on to redefine cartoons with computer animation. So computers have advanced the craft of filmmaking by simplifying and streamlining green screen techniques, the development of drones for aerial shots, AR, VR, 4K resolution, and even more. And another local company, well-known one, out of Los Altos, they started off renting DVDs, and then they turned the entertainment industry upside down when it became the first distributor to introduce streaming. And Netflix empowered their customers to watch content on their own time without commercials. And with their subscription-based revenue stream, allowed them to greenlight multiple productions and forced big Hollywood studios to adapt, resulting in Disney Plus, Hulu, Max, and others. And finally, in 2018, the Turing Award was presented for the invention of deep learning neural networks, which are computers patterned after our own brains. And this is a statue of Turing. So from self-driving cars and Teslas to near perfect translation in Google Translate, digital assistants like Siri, deep learning is just taking over the world. If this trend continues, AI might end up replacing all of humanity's boring and dangerous jobs, construction or truck driving, not fulfilling jobs. And it might end up curing cancer.
That is so much better.
Oh, Sebastian Mura, if you could mute. Why doesn't everybody just mute? That'd be great. So yeah, AI could help cure cancer. It could invent anti-gravity space travel or fusion energy. So some good things, but we need to be clear. It might also decide once it's sentient with ASI, artificial superintelligence, humans are a threat, and it might try to wipe us out. So it sounds like big talk, but this is all real. It's coming soon. And now in 2024, it's definitely here. So on a lighter topic, oh, I think I missed this slide. Yeah. So speaking of AI and art, Hollywood found massive success depicting endearing versions of AI in films like Her, AI, Jarvis and Vision and Avengers, and of course C-3PO from Star Wars, which were all crowning achievements at the box office. But of course, there have also been frightening examples of AI depicted in films like The Matrix, Ex Machina, Age of Ultron, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and one of my personal favorites, Terminator 2: Judgment Day. And this last film is a great example of technology shaking up Hollywood. James Cameron was one of the first directors to use CGI in place of model building, particularly the water snake in the abyss. And then when he improved on this technique, it allowed him to make the liquid metal villain in Terminator 2. And it really set a new standard and unlocked stories that could never have been filmed with analog special effects. And then when ILM used these advanced techniques for the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, the stop motion and model building departments panicked, similar to what we saw last year. And they really feared this new technology would just render them all obsolete. But anyone who's watched the credit scrolls at the end of a modern blockbuster movie, it lists thousands more people employed in VFX departments making movies today than in the 1550s, the golden era of Hollywood. So instead of reducing the number of people working on movies, technology like CGI created magnitudes more jobs. So people fear change, and we have to have empathy. After all, for me, computers can write code. So even technologists like myself who build apps for a living should also be concerned about the future, but also try to embrace it. It's not just writers and artists who we saw strike partly over AI. Everyone has a choice to either embrace it or try to fight it. But the history of technology, like the Industrial Revolution, horse breeders, they protested steam-powered railway cars, thinking the tech would just put them out of business. But in the end, it actually allowed them to sell orders of magnitude more horses all around America, expanding their customer base. And the New York Times actually has many articles on how ATMs would just end all jobs in finance. Yet it just merely took the mundane ones, like handing out $20 bills all day, so people could elevate to more rewarding and stimulating careers in financial life planning, managing funds. So business evolves in mysterious ways. They seem kind of obvious after they occur, but capitalism works. Banning a technology like AI before it's actually integrated in the workforce, I think, is just misguided. It's not the way of America. There's no examples of banning technology really working out and benefiting us. But there are examples of authoritarian countries that try to ban the internet and things, and clearly it fails. So, question you're probably wondering is, can AI be used today to make a real movie? I would say not yet, but it will eat away at the edges for a while. And this is, you probably know, the innovator's dilemma. So big studios today may treat things like ChatGPT like a toy, while ChatGPT and other LLMs will develop better skills. Like, today they might write the marketing copy or analyze the script coverage, but it may then sneak up on them and actually start helping writers to craft entire scenes, maybe with award-winning dialogue. Some technologists we see today are already using AI to write simple jokes and short stories. But many of these creators, they seem to be tech-focused, only know the one side. And that's why we think the results aren't very good, a little cliche. And really no one has paired, let's say, an education in film school and creative writing then with AI product development experience and knowledge of fine-tuning models with story structure and advanced prompt engineering. So at CyberFilm, we think that's going to be the secret sauce that really helps revolutionize the space and making tools that are better than ChatGPT and Midjourney alone to help filmmakers create groundbreaking original works on record times with indie budgets. And I talk to people all the time in Hollywood, and they say, Silicon Valley has been trying to break in Hollywood for years, and they always fail. And that might have been true. But what I think is different now is machine learning. So before we used to program machines, if this, then do that. Even in chess, if you can move legally, take the piece, make a move, you can kind of brute force it, but you can never program a machine to drive a car. and handle all the use cases or things that occur in the world, or write a story for that matter. So instead, we show examples, as you probably now know. And so it watches us drive, or we label things like there's a cat in this picture and not in this one. And then it teaches itself how to drive or identify things in images, but then perfectly and at infinite scale. So I think the most important question is, does that mean it can only copy what we've already done? And so at CyberFilm, we say absolutely not. And we believe DeepMind proved this years ago with AlphaGo. So it can learn by watching us play millions of games of Go, sure. And it can even learn by itself from scratch with watching no human games and just playing itself. And so it doesn't blend our human sort of fallibilities in. And when the moment is right, AI will invent concepts that experts agree no human would ever have imagined, and teach us more about any subject that we've learned ourselves over hundreds or thousands of years of evolution. Go has been around, played by humans for 3,000 years, but in the move 37 depicted here, not only Lee Sedol, the commentators, everyone agreed, like, the move was unprecedented. They thought it was a mistake at first. And after seeing it, it opened up Lee Sedol's mind on how to play the game even better. So in film, we think AI can easily learn the typical 15-beat story structure, like Blake Snyder's Save the Cat, or The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell, or any of our tropes or genres, everything about story writing. But then it will go beyond those and come up with new, compelling ideas that we may never have thought of, and will be a tool at our disposal to select the best ideas and then use the ones we like to make movies, but like nothing ever seen before. So AI, it's already better than us at things like games. It's better at diagnosing many diseases, but instead of putting gamers out of competitions or radiologists out of work, it's helping, for example, for radiologists, improve the quality and speed of triage on a way bigger scale for way more patients, which is a win-win for everyone, especially communities lacking adequate healthcare, not enough doctors. So it's been decades since AI has been playing games, but everyone still plays games. More people play games today than ever before. So we think it's not a bad thing. Why not apply this powerful new tool to filmmaking next? As Picasso said, you learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. And that's what we think machine learning can help us do. Come up with original stories after studying all our existing patterns that have been around since the ancient Greeks. Reading and books, watching movies as any human artist would do, and then recommending inspiring ideas that may be used or may cause you to think of something you never would have thought of, like a writing room buddy or script doctor. Only this particular script doctor has read every book ever and seen every movie on earth, and it's studied all forms of story and character structure. So it's kind of the ultimate film school teacher. It would be hard for someone to become the next Steven Spielberg, never having seen any of his movies or any movies at all for that matter. That's how up-and-coming filmmakers learn. And AI, it's no different. So, Act 3, to finish things off. What are some of the new tools at your disposal? So you probably already heard of ChatGPT and DALL-E, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Pika Labs, Runway Gen 2 for synthetic video, Metaphysic AI for deepfakes, and more. So they can help with anything involving words, images, and video as part of the filmmaking process. With tools like Largo AI, you can get script coverage and recommendations. So you get to production faster with fewer iterations for the writers. So with the right data and training and structure, AI will be a tool used by screenwriters to complete more of their best work faster. Everything short stories to novels, log lines, one-pagers, dialogue for scenes, and what we're working on next, someday hopefully using GANs with metadata, like which scripts won award nominations or box office revenue for the discriminator to find out what's good or not in your script and the ideas that the generator is trying to help improve them. So Hollywood will also continue to use more and more CGI to replace expensive film production through gaming engines like Unreal Engine 5 and generative video models through virtual production, which is a hot trend in the industry. It was used by the Russo brothers' Agbo studio on Everything Everywhere All at Once for the rock scene, or the show Mandalorian, and many more award-winning works you've probably enjoyed in recent years. So here's some fun recent examples of AI in other creative industries. People are using it for concept art, fashion, architecture, ideation. Top left is a living tree apartment imagined up by an architect and an image generator. The top right is AI designed fashion using a 3D printer. Bottom left is FN Mecca, which was an AI rapper that went viral on social media and was actually signed to Capitol Records. On the bottom right are some characters that we scanned in a script that we're working on in my studio, and it invented some characters for us. You've probably seen this video on TikTok or YouTube, pioneering deepfake likeness of Tom Cruise, which is admittedly pretty scary, especially for famous people with hours of video out in the public domain, like actors and politicians. But in the US, it's fair use to parody the likeness of a public feature. But this company, Metaphysic, is actually now leading the charge on scanning and copyrighting your face so you can defend its use in video creation. It's been used in the political arena by Russian hackers impersonating the president of Ukraine. But the FBI, and political bodies are learning about this. And actually, the best thing to do is use AI to detect deepfakes and get them removed. So it's kind of like when Photoshop started producing indetectable fake images. We no longer just take a picture at face value and trust everything we see, and video will soon be the same. Professional motion capture in Hollywood. It used to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, but companies like Rococo are now selling this tech for as low as $3,500. So this stuff is available to the masses, and people have the opportunity to produce quality video on their own with affordable and accessible equipment. One tedious aspect of motion capture performance that's labor intensive is connecting bones from the performance capture to those of a character. Various mocap companies have equipment with slightly different rigging for their bones, and there's no standard way to connect. But theoretically, AI could do it if it had enough data and examples of how to connect the rigs, saving time and money. And software like Toon Boom allows modern animators to set keyframes with character rigs. So instead of drawing 24 individual frames per second, the software completes in between animations. So this is another area AI could help. Taking one step further, what if you just can't afford any animators for your dream project? So an independent artist used style transfer to paint a crow over his short film of a dancer, and it actually won an award at Cannes in the short film festival a couple years back. Another area is set and prop design. So AI could theoretically design the sets and props, which could maybe be printed out with 3D printers, which is a boon for independent filmmakers who can't afford it. Finally, Film Use Stage is software using AI that can upload your script and automatically create the breakdown with all the categories needed for scheduling, like the cast, the props, location, makeup. So really helping out an AD. And if you input cast availability and shoot dates and locations, it can create a schedule. So this is going to bring down budgeting and really help people reduce time and labor in production. Other areas that AI can assist includes camera-related techniques. So in Unreal Engine, a depth of field for focus can be paired to a metahuman, ensures specific areas are always in focus, like the face, while others remain out of focus, similar to having a first AC always watching the actor. And you can always use keyframes to change lenses, aperture, and frame rate to produce desired cinematic effects without lengthy lighting and camera setups and rehearsals. Of course, one of the big questions about the future of AI is, will it replace all our jobs? Will robots take over the arts and just leave humans on the side? And we've seen already why this isn't the case. So it's true that just about any art form you can teach a person to do, you can teach an AI to do just as well. But the combination of human expert teamed up with AI tool wins out overall. We saw this with DeepMind and Go, Jeopardy and Watson, and radiologists with doctors. So improving life through the regulated use of technology. Keeping a human in the loop will especially benefit creative arts. People don't want to watch stuff with no human involved. But AI can help speed things up and make recommendations. So at the end of the day, it's the human professional editing, curating, makes the final call, puts their name on the work. So it's copyrightable and gives, the final sanity check before actually publishing. So last slide. At the end of the day, it's all about one thing: technology used by larger, diverse groups of creators to make better movies faster and easier, and democratizing Hollywood filmmaking. I like to think about, or ask people, when was the last time you saw a film that really moved you? One that caused you to tell all your friends and family, post reviews online, watch it again and again. Now imagine you could watch a new movie that good, but every night of the week, if you desired. I only see 1 or 2 good movies a year. There's really no limit to the number of movies that can be published each year. And we're just seeing more and more streaming services. The cloud is infinitely scalable. We're not limited by the number of theaters and screens and shelf space at Blockbuster. And if there are 100 new movies on Netflix a day, we can use AI to target, someone in Idaho you've never heard of made a sci-fi movie about black holes that you'd really love because we know you like Interstellar. So you got to check it out. So, we have heard from honest insiders, Hollywood's biggest problem is a lack of original new content to make. So with technology like AI, movie making will be democratized to the masses of creatives with original stories to tell. And that's it. Thank you. And just for the recording, if you want to pause it later, these are some of the references. And I know I'm a little over time, so let me just show a quick 2-minute demo. So if you want, you can go to our website. We have a 3-day free trial. Go to writeonsaga.com. But the app looks like this. Here's a movie I'm making with my brother. A lot of people will know 80% of the movie already in their head. So we just help them fill it out. A lot of people in Hollywood would say, I want it to be Titanic meets Jaws. So we've categorized 15 common story archetypes and allow you to pick and mash them up to teach the AI. And then for things you're stuck on, you can hit generate. Now, we have in this app's project, all the characters filled out, all the acts, some of the beats, part of the script. And so this isn't just saying, come up for a B story based on my log line or premise. The reason it's taking a few seconds is because it's looking at everything in your movie and saying, okay, what is a B story? This is where our prompt engineering comes in. It's something with secondary characters, not the hero, the protagonist, but it reinforces the theme and then has hints from other parts, and then it will recommend 5. And if you don't like it, you can click more. But you'll see here a subplot with Dr. Ava. So if we go to the characters, she's, her role is the fake ally opponent. So moving on to the characters, we have a whole bunch of different roles. We have common character arcs, and again, with sort of examples that you can pick. Plenty of archetypes. So, not just normal villains, but the bully, the fanatic, the mastermind, the henchman, all things you can pick from. And then we really help you get into how do you make your character more dimensional? And this is what students love, especially if they don't go to film school. Every good character has a ghost from their past that's chasing them, causing them to believe a lie. And there's something they need to figure out by Act 3 to have a happy ending, but there's something they want based on the lie. So we can generate ideas to help perfect your characters. We do all the acts. We do all the beats. So this is a 40 beat template. If you want to use a different one like Save the Cat or invent your own, you can do that. We have a script page, so it's like Final Draft or Celtics. And you can start writing, and we have all the different stylings. But let's say you get notes from your director. you know, this needs to be shorter and funnier or whatever, it'll rewrite the scene. And if you don't like it, try again, try again. Or you can select lines and say, rewrite, you know, make this more dramatic, or go to the end and say, you know, as you're writing, you just need the next line, just click generate next line, it'll do it. So that's really cool. And then finally, we do storyboards. So this is an example of a storyboard for the movie we're making. But last thing I'm gonna show before I'm done is this is our beta version. And so you can come in here and we help you pick a shot type, we help you pick a camera angle, and then you can type in the shot description. If you type, you know, John riding the tank, it will go look at the character and pull out his likeness. So you don't have to learn prompt engineering. You basically just type in the description of what you want as if someone was drawing it. But now we have an animate button. So it usually takes a few seconds, but you can click here. You can possibly give it notes like the tank zooms through the frame, or it's shooting or whatever. And then eventually it will animate it just a few seconds at a time. So we're calling this like living storyboards or maybe previs. And it's almost done. I know I'm over time, but it just, you got to see this. It's really cool. And then I guess I don't think we'll have time for questions, but my email is russellp@cyberfilm.ai. So if you have any questions, you can send them to me. And then so now you're starting to see a storyboard come to life. And the final version of our app will have a button at the end that says, you know, combine all these animations and all the scripts and literally generate, you know, a 5, 10, 90-minute movie. So a lot of scenes you can film on your phone, but yeah, if you need any special effects or you can't afford a tank, you know, our app will help you do that. So I'll end there and thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Russell, for the comprehensive presentation of the evolution of Hollywood and AI, as well as the very cool demo of the app. I think definitely a great crash course for me to learn about, you know, from a high level perspective of, you know, filmmakers and how they are perceiving, you know, these new technologies. Yeah, so we don't have enough time for question, but
Yeah.
it'd be great if you can also like just put on your contact email and
Yeah.
you know show in the chat, so for folks who have any question and follow up, they can connect.
Great.
And I know that, you know, there's a decent amount of community members. That,
Okay, and sorry for going over, Michael. My apologies.
It's okay. Thank you so much, Russell.
Yeah, Michael, feel free to start sharing your screen and get started with your presentation. Yeah, I know that there's a decent amount of like, I think folk working in film video production in our community. So I think I'm sure they will be interested to like maybe try out CyberFilm SAGA and or like just get your perspective on, you know, some of those things.
Is my thank you, James. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, I can see it. The Canva, right?
Oh, awesome. Well, so I'm here to talk about fine-tuning open source LLMs with LangDrive, which is just a single API that allows you to fine-tune open source LLMs. So the idea for LangDrive came about when we were working on something very different, and then we had to provide task-specific knowledge that all of these huge language models did not have. And these were very small tasks. For instance, if you want to understand someone's writing style and it's only for a specific person and you only have like 100 examples of a text that they've written, and you want to fine-tune a model for that. And we were using GPT-3, GPT 3.5, but it turns out that we were trying to light a match with a blowtorch. And so we started working on LangDrive as an open source fine-tuning engine for open source LLMs. And a few months after we started working on it, the open source community and especially fine-tuning started getting a lot of buzz, especially because people were moving away from RAG, which is retrieval augmentation, to fine-tuning, and both have their merits. Retrieval augmentation is trying to get a piece of text from a document that you have within your knowledge base and then feed it as context to the model. And then fine tuning is just changing the weights of the model to actually have the information that you wanted to have. So Andrej Karpathy has this analogy. He mentioned fine tuning is like zipping. It's like a zip file of the entire internet. So if you fine tune, for instance, Llama to, it turns out to be a couple hundred gigabytes in size, but it's like a zip file of the entire internet. So that's what LangDrive is. LangDrive is an open source LLM engine that allows you to fine tune open source LLMs with just a single interface. Fine tuning is a non-trivial task, especially for engineers who are new to software development and machine learning. If you are a Stanford PhD, like there's so many parameters that go into fine tuning. For instance, you have to think about number of training epochs, gradient descent, gradient accumulation steps, a lot of technical ML engineering terms. It's like just a new engineer starting to fine tune models. It might be difficult. So this is actual code from LangDrive, which just fine tunes Falcon 7B, which is this 7 billion parameter model from an institute in the UAE. And it spans over 250 lines of code. We've distilled that into a single API call that you make. So we find what is the standard parameterization of these open source models, and then we make those as Docker images. And then you can then spin up those Docker images on your GPU. We actually provide notebooks for those that you can spin up on Google Colab, and then you just call those APIs in a single line of code. So the line of code that you call is called LangDrive train. We made it a CLI command just because it allows you to wait until the command is completed. Including it in like a normal runtime process takes a lot of time. So you have the entire CLI library downloaded within your computer. So it's an npm package that you install with npm I install, and then you call this command LangDrive train. I'm going to share exactly how it works, but first I'd love to dive into the docs for LangDrive. So it's langdrive.ai/docs. And there are 3 ways you could actually use it. We recommend the CLI approach, which is going through your terminal and then adding the parameters. And then you add a bunch of different parameters like your Hugging Face token. This is a token that provided by Hugging Face that has right permissions. And so what happens is after the fine-tuning process is complete, you can actually choose to deploy that model over to Hugging Face. It does it automatically after the fine-tuning process is complete. And then the base model is like the actual base model that you have to take from Hugging Face that you're going to train. And then you can choose whether or not you want to deploy it with the deploy flags that we have. And then you specify your CSV training data based on the path where the training data is. We also have another way where you can fine-tune these LLMs using a YAML config. And this is a much more advanced, but this is the one I like most because we've built these data connectors because with the CLI, you can specify a path to a CSV file. But with the YAML config, you can actually get data from your internal company database on Google Firestore. You can get internal emails. You can get Google Drive content. And then we do all the data formatting and then fine-tune the models for you. And so consider it as like a fine-tuning configuration where you specify API keys for your Google Drive so you can access them. You specify mail transfer protocols like SMTP for your emails and password that way. And it's all locally on your computer, so we have no access to it, and it's completely open source, and you can see how the code works. And so the YAML config is mostly important for data ingestion, and then the entire fine-tuning process works exactly the same. we've also been working on using a bunch of different kinds of LLM tools. So the deployments right now for LangDrive will provide you an image that you can deploy to Google Cloud, wherever you have your GPUs located. But we're working on more deployment options like Heroku and other kinds of deployment options as well. We're a bit limited by, let's say, we're limited by the size of the models. So if you have a 7 billion parameter model, you could maybe go get away with deploying it on Heroku on a simple Heroku eCode computer. But as the models get larger and larger, you need a more performant computer. And that's why we started doing these notebooks. And with just a $9.99 subscription on Google Colab, you can have these notebooks provided by LangDrive, where you spin up these notebooks and then you open up like an API endpoint for these notebooks, and then these notebooks get to be used to fine-tune these LLMs. So I'm going to go over to the demo. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
So with just npm install LangDrive, it installs the package that you need. This is in the repository that you have your project running. I've already installed it, so I'm not going to do it. And then you set a couple of things like your Hugging Face token, the Hugging Face model path. This is the path you need to have a Hugging Face account, the path where you want your the model to be deployed after. And then you set like Hugging Face tokens. I've just put like a sample token here because I don't want to share my Hugging Face tokens. And then you can call this command called LangDrive train. I'm calling this command currently LangDrive train on a CSV file called Midjourney prompts a CSV, and then passing in Hugging Face token and Hugging Face model path. And this file, Midjourney prompts, it's just a collection of prompts that are used for Midjourney. So if you want, like, generate me an image of a steampunk castle interior, if you're using Midjourney, there are some specific technical terms that you can use to get the best generated images. And so this is like a common data set that's used for fine tuning. And we've put together around 400 of these in this data set. I think we got the data set from Hugging Face. And then you just have input-output pairs. So the input pairs is like what you think the prompt would be to the model, and then output is what the model outputs. And so once you call LangDrive train on this data set, it gets the API where your image is currently hosted, sends over the data, and we already have the standard parameterization already there. It runs the training process, and then at the end, it sends you an email that, hey, your model has been trained, and then you can get to see it on Hugging Face. So it's a one-click solution. So that's the demo. It's very short and simple. And I've already talked about some of the custom data loaders that we have within LangDrive. So SMTP for emails, we currently support all sorts of SMTP servers. So if you are a company internally and you have some customer support emails and you use Outlook or Gmail, you just connect your customer support email address, and then you get all of your emails locally, and then you use it to fine-tune LangDrive. So it becomes really knowledgeable on the customer support queries that you have. And then you have the model available to you. So you have complete control over your data. I've talked about Firestore, CSVs, and Google Drive. We keep adding more data loaders as time goes on, but these are some of the data loaders that we have right now. I'd love to talk about some of the benefits of fine-tuning, because this sometimes gets conflated between, well, should I fine-tune or should I use RAG? Like, what are some of the differences? And the biggest one I like to point to is if you are using RAG, can you guarantee that you can always like have access to the data source? because in order for RAG to work, you always need to have access to the data source to do the retrieval. But for fine tuning, once you fine tune a model, you can replicate that model multiple times. So if you have like different instances in where if you're using like some distributed compute, different data centers where your product runs, you can just replicate that model, duplicate that model, and then share it in those instances without having access to the same data source. So that's one of the that's the best analogy that I can find about some of the benefits of fine tuning. It's also great for task-specific performance that I just shared with the Midjourney prompts. So if you want a model to know exactly how to generate prompts with Midjourney, the weights are actually being changed so the model is super knowledgeable in that specific domain. And then resource utilization is much better because you don't have to train the model from scratch. Pre-training a model, that's what OpenAI does. Anthropic, they have millions and millions of dollars that goes into training a model. So, and those tasks take a really, really long time to complete. But with fine tuning, you could probably fine tune the model every couple of days if you see that it's not performing the way you want it to perform. So check us out on GitHub. It's an open source project. We're always looking for contributors. This link takes you directly to our LangDrive GitHub page. We currently support Llama 2. All the Llama 2 models support Mistral and Falcon. There is currently a breaking change for bits and bytes that we use for quantization for Falcon right now. So Falcon might not work entirely. And our docs is available at docs.langdrive.ai. And you can always you can also check out our Discord server if you need help. I'm realizing that I didn't talk much about the team. So we're currently 2 engineers from Carnegie Mellon. We both have master's degrees in software engineering. We worked in artificial intelligence before, and we're adding 1 more ML engineer to the team right now. So we need all the open source help we can get. And I'm really thankful to James for inviting me to come over here and talk about open source LLMs and fine tuning. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Michael, for this presentation and talk about, I think I think making that distinction between fine tuning and RAG and highlighting those benefits, the challenges, as well as doing that demo. I think it's super beneficial for the multi minded audience to get a sense of like how to use your projects, right? We still have probably about 5 minutes left in the meeting. So yeah, if anyone have any question for Michael, yeah, feel free to just unmute yourself and yeah, let's ask them in real time. I just one question from my end is like you looks like been playing around with a couple of these open source foundation models, right? Like Llama, Mistral, and Falcon, and I could imagine like tuning for each of these might be might require some specialization, right? Might be customized for each of those models. Did you see any like maybe specific modification that require in order to like fine tuning for like say when you try to add a new open source element into your report?
Yeah. So these models are actually developed with, let's say, the same transformer infrastructure. So the one thing that I think is specific across most LLMs is the transformer library in terms of fine tuning. Where we see things break a lot is when you quantize the model. That's like segmenting the model into smaller pieces, and then you fine tune, let's say, you don't want to, let's say, fine tune 100% of the weights. You want to only fine tune 25% of the weights. So you quantize the model into 4 pieces, and then you fine tune. That's when it mostly breaks. But with the transformer infrastructure, it's pretty standard using the transformer library to fine tune it.
I see. Yeah. So there's like a lot of commonalities, right? With that architecture, so that you can reuse a lot of the settings or the configuration that you already set up.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I guess like Matthew, I think you were unmute. Do you have any
Yeah,
question?
exactly. I would like to ask a question to Michael. So what would be the benefit of using LangDrive over the Hugging Face libraries that offer the possibility like Path to fine-tune models? Like, is there any advantage that like potential user like me could benefit that Hugging Face doesn't offer?
Yeah. So Hugging Face Auto Train has like performance efficient fine tuning that they use. What's missing from that is the connection with data loaders that you can have. So LangDrive has data loaders that you can connect internally from like company emails and then immediately fine tune. And Hugging Face Craft it's a really heavyweight solution. So we use Hugging Face Auto Train like in our own code. LangDrive is like a higher abstraction of that. So
Oh,
you
okay.
can't have like a one-line CLI command that I just called on LangDrive. With Hugging Face, probably going to be like 200-300 lines of code.
Okay, that's cool. I will definitely play around with LangDrive. Thanks.
Yeah. I saw another question in the chat. Yeah, low rank adaptation is an alternative to fine-tuning the entire model. I think LoRa is gaining a lot of attention right now. There's also QLoRa, which is pretty much just like works like quantization. It's like quantized LoRa, and it works really well. So only if you have a lot of resources with GPUs, as we know, is like really scarce right now, there's probably not a whole need to fine tune the entire model. Quantization works really well if you're using. Do we support LoRa and QLoRa? I know we don't support LoRa and QLoRa. Would love to. So only if you have really efficient resources that I'd advise to fine tune the entire model. But one thing I want to point, I want to make known, because I think this point is not really talked about a lot in the open source community, but the smallest models can actually perform really, really well for some task specific tasks. And one of my favorite models, it can't be like, I think in the past 2 weeks, there's been this really small model. I'm the name is escaping me right now, but it's been performing really, really well. And that's something I wanted to point attention to. Any plan to support LoRa in the future? Yes. With the open source support that we're getting, that's why we're doing these talks to have some of the developers come on board and support LoRa. We plan to keep adding support and make the product free. The goal is not to make money from this. We do have another product that we work on that we make money from, but LangDrive is just to support the open source community. I don't see any other questions in the chat.
Yeah. Great. Maybe one final question from my end. I think like I saw a lot of prediction from different thought leaders in the field about the rise of small model, right? As a way to how these small models using things, for example, like a mixture expert, for instance, can actually outperform a lot of the more like bigger models, right? In different tasks, and that will democratize all the access, right, for the community. I think so. Given your just experience, trying out LangDrive on a couple platooning for a few of these like smaller model, what's your perspective regarding these I guess the applicability, right, of these small models, who's going to be the ideal users, how they compare to like more like closed source and publishing models from big companies that we were used to in the last year.
Yeah. Thank you. I also think like with augmentation, for what Perplexity is doing with their Perplexity models, augmenting a smaller model with information from the internet, that's also something that's gaining a lot of attention these days. And I think there'd still be room for larger models. but going in the future, we've seen that larger models have not been able to perform really well for task-specific tasks.
I see. Yeah, great. That makes a lot of sense. It sounds like, you know, the bigger model, like could like the better choice if you like really want to get like very high capabilities, right? Very high like capabilities, very like, what's the right word for it? Like generic task versus like for some domain that requires more specificity, right? And you know, proprietary data, then technical stuff, fine tuning, and the usage of, you know,
Yeah.
smaller model will be a better option, right?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, so I think we had time. Well, thanks everyone for staying, you know, throughout this webinar. Thanks to the speakers, Russell and Michael, for delivering, you know, these two presentation. Yeah, I posted a recording of this meeting on YouTube between like a week or so or two. And yeah, we hosting, you know, this webinar series every week on Friday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. So yeah, if you found this useful and informative, yeah, please come back to the next session next week or so. Appreciate your attention, and I hope you'll have a great rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks, James. Thanks, guys. Bye.